podcast. We're glad to be here. This is episode 0. We're starting from the very, very beginning. And I would like to introduce ourselves. We'll start over here.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Chenevert. I am an executive brand strategist. So I love all things brand strategy. And of course, I have a specialization in culture. I also have a doctorate in advertising from the University of Texas at Austin. So I bring a little mix of academics and agency to the table. And we are so excited to get this going. And we want to really make sure that we break down culture, right? From the perspective of themes that we think are important and what you think are important. So happy to be here.
And I am Gary J. Nix, also a brand strategist, the owner of my own small shop called Brandarski's Edge right now. I am a little bit of a wild card, but I'm also very well versed in culture. I also teach in college, something that Amber had done, and she has run screaming from for a little bit. And I don't quite
Ah.
blame her, even though I still love it. And like I said, we're really here. We're really glad to be here. This is an idea that Amber came to me with last year
Yep.
at
At Blackweek.
Blackweek,
Mhm.
and when she said, "Let's do this," I said, "Yes." Which is pretty much she asked me to do something. I'm going to go ahead and do it because I know that she knows what's happening, and she knows what she's doing for sure. I do sometimes.
That's cool of you. Um, so I think one thing that is important for us to make sure that we talk about is when we think about culture as it relates to brands, marketing, and business, which is really our expertise here, we want to look at it more than just as whatever is hot in the streets, like whatever the trend is, like what's really also going on beneath the surface. And what does that mean for how brands begin to respond, how they react, how that relates to their values, and what that means for potentially long-term success.
Correct. And speaking of value, we want to make sure that because this is our first episode that we remind you to like, subscribe, share, give us 5 stars in the ratings as we go up there because this is going to help us continue to do what we are here to do. Amber already talked about how a lot of places just treat culture as trend watching,
Mhm.
and we're not here for that by any stretch of the imagination. It drives us out of our minds. We know it's much deeper than that, and we want to have those conversations that have actual depth and meaning to help businesses like yours gain the kind of impact that you want to have. Not just the revenue, but the impact, because that will lead to long term revenue and sustainability for your business. But you have to remember, you're here to serve the people. So you need to understand them, not just what you're offering. You need to understand the people.
Right, because at the end of the day, culture is a set of values, conventions, and social practices that define how people see themselves, how they move in the world, and even aspirations for themselves. And as a result of that, we're talking about culture being a foundation for like thousands of years because that's how people found their way to themselves, to their people when they move to new communities, when they find themselves on social media, whatever it is, like culture defines it all. And humans are the ones that are driving culture and moving culture. So if you follow the humans, you find the truth. So we always want to keep humanity first.
Yeah, I knew I should have had my other sweatshirt on. I looked at my brands create culture. People, I mean, brands don't create culture. People do.
Uh huh.
I looked at it. I was like, should I wear it today? I was like, no, I'm not going to wear it today. But trust me, you'll see that sweatshirt or that t-shirt or something. You'll see it at some point because
Yeah.
it's extra real. Um, but let's get into a little bit more of how this came about And
Mhm.
then let's talk about what it's going to look like going forward so
Okay.
that people can really get on board and understand when we really get into these conversations.
Mhm. Alright, cool. So, how it came about?
Mhm.
Um,
She ran up
so
on me, y'all, just at Black Week, and was like, "Yo, we gotta do this. We're gonna go ahead and do this, and you on, you in or not?"
Yeah, so, I mean, definitely, really, like, conceived a lot of this at Black Week last year, and if you don't know what Black Week is, please check it out. We're really looking at trying to consider not just, um, our place as Black people in business, in marketing, in various industries, but also our influence at a bigger scale. And so that's a conference that really taps into that more broadly. But for us, we were able to really be inspired at that event to think about okay, well, what can we contribute? What can we own as far as our voice and what we can deliver to the people? We both have teaching backgrounds. And so we wondered is this a new opportunity for us to reach people who are already in the business, people who want to break in, and really sort of get some of that teaching vibe out, that I did like. I just miss my agency. uh and so like this was our opportunity. We were just so inspired by everything that we experienced at Black Week that we thought we could bring that to bear by way of our expertise being culture and how that relates to business. So we were excited to work on it. We've been working on it for a while because the creative piece is easy. It's the business part that can really be tricky. So it's really taken us about a year to get all of that together. So I'm happy we made it here and we're excited to share more with you.
Especially as we prepare for Black Week 2025.
That's right.
Like, this is more than, just one thing that's happening. We are celebrating an anniversary already, even though we're just starting the recording and the production of the
Yeah.
podcast. Uh, and we're hoping this should be out by the time Black Week is around.
Yeah.
So, we ready. We want to celebrate everything and really get into what it is that we're doing. So,
Mhm.
as far as the podcast goes, we have structured a set of segments that will work with the theme. So, the reason why this is called the culture of, and there's an ellipsis after of, is because there's so much that we want to discuss about culture that we don't want to reduce it to one thing. So the theme of this podcast is also the subject of this podcast. And you'll see how it flows as more episodes come out. And it's really easy. It's the culture of. It's going to be the culture of this thing, the culture of that thing. And as such, the segments have to go along with that. So the first segment, which is how we will go ahead and kind of introduce whatever the theme of that episode is, this episode being episode 0, the culture of why. The first segment is called Rising Above the Noise. If you're out there and you consume any sort of media, you know there is plenty of noise out there. And with all that noise, that creates competition. And I know y'all don't want to hear all the noise. I know I don't want to hear all the noise. So, how do you rise above that? You start out with what it is that you really need to talk about and what's important, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, when we have a guest, we will have guests, not every week, but some weeks we will have guests. Um, and that segment will be called Because of Who They Are. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, we wanna make sure that we make room and space to be sure that we're describing our guests and their contribution to the theme and essentially what we wanna discuss. We just wanna make sure we give them their due when we're starting out. So it helps to set the stage a bit.
Mhm. And it also just informs why they're here. There's a reason for each and every guest that we choose. and it is because of who they are. So once we get all those fun intros out of the way and all that good stuff, we introduce the topic of the day. We move on to kind of the meat of the podcast episode, which starts off with something called Decoded. Decoded is where we start analyzing the topic that we are speaking about. We start to deconstruct the strategy because that's what we do as strategists. Either we construct strategies or we deconstruct them to see if they work, why they don't work, and all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
And we start revealing the patterns that are within. We're human. We all have patterns that we follow, whether we like to admit it or not. But that's part of being human. And that's part of understanding how to connect with people. Because that's another thing I think that people sometimes either forget or overlook about what we do in terms of being successful at it. It's about connection more than it's about sales. The connections lead to the sales, but you can't force a sale on anyone and you can't force a connection on anyone. So because you have to earn everything,
Mhm.
it makes sense to try to earn a connection with someone first and understand what the patterns that really make them work.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I would add is that in Decoded, we're also gonna establish attention, I believe. So that one, a strategist, that's always what we're looking for is attention, but we wanna make sure we're clear on the aspect of culture that we're navigating, and then what's the friction in the marketplace as a result of that, and really make sure that we spend a bulk of the time just thinking through that and breaking that down. So then again, when it comes to culture, we begin to have a broader sense and understanding of what that means, beyond like a super famous chicken video crossing the road or something.
Right, right. And just a note to all, trying to avoid friction, not a good idea.
That's right.
It may not feel the greatest, but it's something you really can't avoid. It's something that you have to address. Also, friction doesn't have to be bad. It's not inherently negative. It's sometimes a crossroads, and that's not always a bad thing.
Mhm.
So once we get through decoded, we want to take a little bit more of a look inside. And that brings us to um, our fourth segment, which is longer than a moment.
Mhm.
You know, this speaks to the fact that culture is more than about trends.
Right. It's more than about trends. Um, Again, as we said earlier, it's about people, but it's also about that long-term impact that you want to have
Mhm.
as a brand. So, um, yes, there could be something exciting that kicks off in the marketplace, but what's the depth of it? Where are those opportunities for you to really find yourself as a company or as a brand in consideration of your values and what all of that means? So, in this way, we have a chance to really dive in and unpack and start to like craft some story around like why it's meaningful, not just for the moment, but also beyond.
Mhm. Yes, which then opens the door to a segment called Built on Vibes, right? Um, and when was first thinking about that segment, I thought it was gonna be more of a wild card segment, something that would come up sometimes because it's hard to know everything about the intention around a campaign if you're not involved in it. If you're not in that room, you don't have all the information. However, the professor to my left came up with a very good point about how we can kind of deduce what happened, or we can deduce why it went well and apply some attention to that, or we can talk about what went terribly wrong and either apply some intention by deducing it, or talking about how there was no intention and how that's also bad. Doing things without intention is going to be a problem. And I think people need to understand that. Sometimes they run away from the intention or they just try to say, well, I didn't intend to do that. But the intention matters whether it's good or bad. And we have to really address that more often than we do, in my opinion.
Right, because there's intention and impact,
Yeah.
right? Um, and some folks might say a disparate impact is controversial. I don't believe it is. I think that's just all around accountability,
Mhm.
and there's a way to consider both intention and pick impact when building strategy. And the reason why I could call BS on, you know, impact not being an issue or how it's impacting others not being an issue is because the number one impact we have that we measure is looking at whatever marketing goals that we have. Do we get awareness? Do we get sales? Do we get there's all of these hard metrics,
Mhm.
right? Um, and there's human metrics as well that we need to consider that could be related to impact. Now, if you're a brand that doesn't care about impact, then be about it, you know, but don't put something out there and then kind of tiptoe back like, oh, I didn't mean to. Nah.
Right.
If you didn't plan for it, if you don't have a metric behind it, then you're responsible. So,
Yeah, you really are responsible either way. And I think the other funny thing is if you didn't have if you didn't want any impact, you didn't want to do your job.
right.
There's I think when we talk about intent and impact sometimes we
Yeah.
try to diminish or erase one of them.
Mhm.
And intent and impact have that kind of relationship where you have to have one or the other.
Right.
You want positive on both sides, and sometimes you miss, sometimes you mess up. But when you mess up, how do you do better? If you mess up at your job, you try to do better,
Right.
or else you lose your job.
That's right.
So if your job has to do with making money and the impact of whatever you did is not making the kind of money you want to make, you got to do better.
Or it doesn't put your brand in the right light that you hope for. You got to do better, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm not going to go on a tangent about brands yet. We have plenty of
We have plenty
episodes
of
for
time.
that.
We have plenty of
We have
time.
so much time for that.
Yes.
So after that segment, we will go on to kind of wrap up the topic discussion,
Mhm.
whether it's just between you and I or you and I and a guest. And that segment is called "Let That Sit."
Mhm.
That's the wrap up. To wrap up the topic, that's close to the wrap up of the episode. We want to kind of tie a nice bow around whatever the topic was, so that there's some understanding um, about the topic to the listeners. Uh, there's understanding about where our conversation ends for that day, even though we talk about things a whole bunch and the conversations do kind of continue or they evolve.
Mhm.
But you still have to have some sort of ending point. To move on, whether it's with that conversation or the evolution of that conversation or an adjacent conversation or a completely different conversation or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
We you can't just leave things just wide open and just be like, okay, and we're done. Hey, it doesn't really work.
Da 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 da. Ow.
Right.
Yeah. Um and and that's really important because the next segment or the last one um is essentially in response to. So in response to is really about you all. Um what did you all hear in the podcast? What questions do you have? What things could we potentially dive into more? What are you excited about? What do you want to talk about? What have you heard? What do you want to contribute? We want to hear all of that. So that will help us to be able to respond to whatever feedback we're getting in that particular moment.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, what is culture without community?
Right.
Like how does that even work? It doesn't. So because we're trying to build something, not just a podcast where we just talk at people, we want to build a community where we can have these conversations that really matter. We can have fun. Some things can be There can be some tension sometimes, but that's how real conversations work. So we want to make sure that we have a community that's built in good faith to have these conversations, to be able to answer the questions that you may have, to address some of the things that you're thinking about, because that's how we all grow. It feels, once again, it feels kind of simple to me. Like it's pretty straightforward. It's something that we all say we want.
Mhm.
So how do we go ahead and help build these types of things? And that's what we're trying to do here.
Right.
That's the more than an attempt.
Think
That's what
of
we're building.
yes. Think of us as your culture seminar professors. We in here. Yeah.
Yes. It's still weird. This is my 5th semester at City Tech, and I'm still not 100% comfortable with, "Oh, you're a professor." I'm like, "What? I am? What?"
Oh, yes. You professing your professoring
Apparently.
and now extending it to the podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. All this time I was running from teaching and just running I was actually running into teaching.
Mhm,
Wild
mhm,
things. So,
mhm.
um, as we talk about community,
Yeah.
um, I also want to invite everyone, because this stuff takes time, it takes money, it takes effort. We are also going to have a Patreon, right? Um, Now, obviously, it's not a requirement, but hey, if you want to help us out some, you know? Trying to, like I said, trying to build a community, and in the Patreon, there's a free tier where you make sure you get the information. Sort of like newsletter level.
Yeah.
Things that are happening. When episodes are coming out. Uh, right now, because we're just beginning, the episodes are bi-weekly, so once every other week, we will be here to talk to you about something. But if you're in the Patreon,
Mhm.
that's where you start getting some of the extra things.
Yeah.
You know, Patreon members will get early access to the regular episodes. Patreon access will give you the kind of key to our deepest dives, the episodes that we call deconstructed, when we really look at things and we have that deep conversation, that conversation that we have either in the group chat
Mhm,
or we
mhm.
have while we're eating something. The one that we don't go super deep into on social media, because we don't know everyone who's gonna be there.
Mm-mm, sure don't.
So
Gotta be careful.
we gonna know who here, so that we can have these real deep conversations. That's what deconstructed is about. Also, if you're a member of the Patreon, you will get discounts to the merchandise, the culture of merchandise,
I don't know if you
things
can
like
see
this.
that.
Yes,
See
you
that
know,
nice logo? It's good.
we're doing T-shirts, we're doing hoodies, we're doing tote bags.
I'm gonna
We
get
got
my
some
mug at some
mugs.
point.
We
Okay,
got
okay.
yeah, we gotta have the mugs soon. We're
Yeah.
gonna have the mugs on the table right here so people can see it and like, yeah, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it's not just to quote unquote look official, but it's because these are things that we like.
Yeah.
We like to wear messages that we believe in. And I'm
Mm.
not just talking about us.
Mhm.
I'm talking about everybody. We really enjoy doing that. So why not have some fun with it? And also, or lastly, at certain versions of the Patreon,
Yes.
then the professors really
We will
come
be
out.
teaching.
Real deal lessons.
So we'll be taking we'll be looking at like particular themes and building out actual coursework or an actual course around the theme. So then we'll do some deep dives into some theories and constructs related to our academic interests and study around these particular topic areas.
and you'll be talking to us,
Hmm.
right? We will all be Most of it will be virtual, just because, we expect, people not to just be in New York,
Yeah.
but you'll be able to speak to us for real.
Hmm.
Not just listen to us and then email us or leave a comment or whatever, which is cool,
Hmm.
but you'll be having conversations real time, because that's what we are uh here to do,
That's right.
So
Teaching on our terms.
exactly, real talk. So, now that we have gotten through episode 0, I would like to remind everyone to like, share, engage with us, give us great reviews. We're going to be here on YouTube. You're going to be able to listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We out here. That's really what it is.
And we're so excited and we're so happy to be here. We've heard from several of you all. Y'all could just listen to us talk for hours. Well, now you're going to get your
Exactly.
chance.
Exactly. So with that, thank you so much. Episode 0 wrapped up. We're going to let that sit.
All right, let it sit.
Right.